Hello, hello. Okay, so we've just tried to do an IG live and it didn't quite take, so we're going to try again. This is take two of our IG live founder chat with Amer Khajil, who is the CEO of Amer AI. So it's a really, really cool company, and I hope that we can make this work. I don't know why IG has been acting up recently. Okay, this again. Fingers crossed. Connecting. There we go.
Moving.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I know some people are just coming back who were with us. I'm just going to adjust this. It's always a little bit higher, weirdly placed than I think it's going to be. Okay. I don't know why it's doing that. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Me?
Yeah. Yeah. How are you doing?
All good, all good. Enjoying
Good.
the nice weather outside. Have the windows open when I'm working, so
Oh,
makes sense
nice.
for being at home all day.
Yeah. I heard it was getting hot over there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had a few more people join, so I'm just gonna do a little introduction and then we'll get started. And I'm aware that it's already 34 past the time we're supposed to start usually, but as long as you're okay to go a little bit over, I'm okay to
Yeah.
go a little bit over. Awesome. Okay. And apologies again for that technical difficulty. Okay, so officially, hello everyone. Welcome to yet another IG Live founder chat. So this time we are talking to Amer Khajil. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, all good. Amherst, right? Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, the CEO of Amanda.ai. So Amanda, is it Amanda.ai or just Amanda AI?
I'm into AI. Yeah.
Amanda AI. Okay, so I'm learning with everybody else here. Amanda AI is a facial recognition technology company that's obsessed with enriching user experiences, and you'll learn more about what exactly that means. But Amer, he came to our pitch event in November, I believe. I wasn't there personally. I'm in Madrid, but you were there in person back when we had in-person events. And he ended up winning top pitch of the event. So really excited to have you here and talk about what you're doing. I know lots been going on with COVID and has had a really large effect on your company. So I think I'm really interested to dig into all of those pieces. So without further ado, I'm not going to keep on prattling on. Instead, I'm going to pass over to you. And just usually how I start this is oh, actually, no, before I start, I forgot to say this because I got all confused with the technology stuff. But people who are joining us, say hello. Make sure to ask questions if you have any. Essentially, this is just a casual conversation. Yes, down there, casual conversation. So I'm going to be, it's kind of like a interview style, but if you have any questions or comments, just, put them in the chat and we're happy to check those out. Okay, so now officially handing it over to you. And usually how I like to start is to understand a little bit more about what is Amanda AI and what is the story behind it.
For sure. Thank you so much, Melanie. It's great to kind of finally do this and reconnect, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Amanda AI, like you said, is a facial recognition technology company. We're obsessed with enhancing user experiences, and we're very much a kind of a end user first by design. So that's really been our focus since day one. About a year and a half ago or so, the technology actually started within a local innovation studio. So like a local company that develops software called TTT Studios. And they kind of have this, technology, and we're building a side project with this facial recognition technology. And they really weren't sure what they wanted to do. And at the same time, I had kind of met the founders and the CEO of that company. And I said, hey, is there an opportunity for us to maybe look at, spinning this out as its own business unit, right?
Yeah.
So this technology you've developed is obviously, the actual core technology is really strong. And, the company itself, TTT Studios, is fantastic at building technology products. They've been around for over 10 years. So essentially, I kind of joined, the team, and we spun out Amanda AI as its own company, and essentially really focused on, essentially the use cases of where do we see people interacting with facial recognition technology. Like I said, where kind of the end user is really the one benefiting. because obviously, as you know, we all know, facial recognition is often in the news more negatively, where it's being used for surveillance or what have you. And our
Yeah.
thought was, let's empower the end user first. And
Okay.
so we looked at two kind of main verticals. One was for office visitor management. So as people come into your office, they can sign up, take a photo, so they're recognized if they revisit your office.
Okay.
And then the other kind of area that we ended up piloting that we focused on was actually in the events industry. So essentially, our tagline is "Your face is your ticket." And
Yes.
so what we had built was essentially a way for attendees to check into events using their face. And the way they did that is when they purchased the ticket, they would receive an email. In that email, they'd upload their photo if they choose to. Again, it's all optional. So when they
Right.
arrive at the event, they tap a button. They're recognized immediately. Their name badge prints, and they go right ahead. And so yeah, we kind of started this. We started kind of the business development, or I'd say the whole business side of the company back in April of last year. Did some early validation in the summer and really hit the ground running, I'd say August onwards. And between
Right.
August and before COVID, between August and March, we were kind of seeing really good traction of probably around 1 to 2 events a month or so.
Right.
Across
You had some
Canada. And we were really
pretty big ones lined up, right?
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. We were really lucky to work with a lot of big events here. One of our largest was in January with Cambridge House International. It was a resource investment conference that was about 5,000 people, over 5,000 people.
Right.
And again, that's our sweet spot, is probably over 500, over 1,000 is really when you see the value proposition of the fast check-in.
Interesting.
And yeah, like I said, between August and March, we're kind of full steam ahead, working on product, actually, launching and being at events. And then, obviously COVID hit and everything kind of changed a little bit.
Was the event management space affected at all by
exactly.
COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So about that, I know that you pivoted a lot, but you really dove in and you're just like, okay, what are we gonna do now? So it wasn't like, game over, we're not doing this anymore. It was just how do we adapt to this, which I really appreciate, especially I think being nestled within a larger company is amazing. It's a dream of any entrepreneur, but also I feel like there could have been that oh, you know what, this isn't working. Let's go back to the drawing board and do something else. So I think it's really interesting that you're having those conversations still and trying to figure out, and you're talking to a lot of event managers about what experiences they're having and the problems they're experiencing, which are a lot. So I'd love to know, I'm sure most of us can guess some of the ways that your business was, and your technology was affected by COVID, but if you want to get into a little bit around how you were impacted and what you did with that.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think for us, I guess we, again, as a startup business or a product, that early traction was obviously extremely exciting, right? You kind of get on this high where, you're working and things are kind of falling into place slowly but surely. There's problems and all that, but things are falling into place.
Yeah.
And actually, by March, the exciting thing, that we were looking for was we actually had that lineup for the summer.
Yeah.
You're doing, especially for events, you're doing business development for months ahead, right? Yeah. And so we had I think for the summer, we pretty much had maybe from April till August kind of laid out more or less, right? And it was a really exciting time.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one week in March where, we started the Monday. I think I had one client ask me, I had a call with a client. They're like, oh yeah, you know what? We might have a second date just because of this COVID thing we're starting to hear about. Has anyone, and they were asking me, they're like, oh, have any of your other clients canceled or anything like that? I was like, no, it seems like everything's still on. We're keeping an eye on it, but it seems like, all my clients, everything's still in place. That was Monday.
Yeah.
And then Friday, essentially every day or every other day, we had people calling to say, hey, we're either postponing. And then those usually again ended up resulting in the events being canceled, which is understandable. And we again had to kind of really adjust and deal with that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Kind of how we really dealt with it was, I'd say, again, in the early stages, again, I spent about a few months at the beginning really trying to think about pivots. Can we, not necessarily even product, but even maybe potentially as a service, we have this technology, we know we can build good products. Can we try to work with education institutions to, help with maybe checking into class or proctoring exams? Can we help with, Service Canada? We actually did a few proposals for government to see, is there any way we can do, help agencies like better provide their services online through like
Yeah.
authentication. So really, we put out, I honestly can't remember the number. We put out a number of proposals, a number of grant applications, and
Yeah.
what have you, and nothing really ended up landing. And I mean, obviously, I think in my perspective and talking to a couple of people, it's like, especially with facial recognition, that's a very significant change.
Yeah.
To
Right.
the operations of a company or
Right.
any type of process.
Yeah.
And I think there's obviously, again, like a risk when you're doing something that big. So I think a lot of
Yep.
people wanted maybe the safer options that were kind of guaranteed to go as smoothly as possible versus something that maybe might give them a little bit more security or what have you. Yeah. So, and again, so that was kind of the first couple of months. And then since then it was, this idea of potentially kind of, again, two ideas is one is how can we go back to our original prototype, which was the Amanda office, which was kind of, like I said, the check-in system for offices.
Right.
That one, we're actually still actively talking to people about it. So people haven't gone back to their offices yet, but we're trying to continue that, like, be part of that seed in a way to have people thinking about it
Interesting.
when they go back. And then the other part of it is that exploration. So again, looking into how do we either work with events or event organizers with another product, or even like I'm spending, again, a portion of my time just thinking about new product ideas as well.
Right.
Knowing that, again, when we come back, we'll still have what we have.
Yeah.
But, we're trying to really, again, it's about solving problems at the end of the day. And it's like, what are the problems that we can solve at this time, right? And I think that's, kind of the...
Awesome. Cool. We've got questions coming in, I'm seeing, which I love. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the questions are around, okay, I'll do the broader one first, which is how's BC's AI industry ecosystem and landscape? Because I know, is it Montreal has a really good ecosystem for
sure. Yeah, Montreal has a really big
BC?
ecosystem for AI. BC is doing really well. I think we're definitely punching above our weight class. I'd say for general innovation, but also for AI. So one organization to check out locally, which was founded last year, is called AI in BC. So it's the AI Association.
AI in BC.
Yeah, exactly. So AI and then the letter N, BC. And it's the AI Association of BC. And so they're partnering with companies that have essentially develop AI solutions across, again, a very wide variety of applications. And, they've been really providing a lot of, insights. They survey the members often and kind of give people an idea about the general sentiment of the industry, funding in the industry. And then last year in December, they also hosted the Crossover AI Conference, which was about bringing kind of these AI companies and kind of government and other companies that need AI services all together. And we actually did the facial recognition check-in for that event.
Oh, right. That's amazing.
But it was a great kind of way to bring in all the stakeholders into one conference. And again, like it was maybe, I can't remember how many companies, but it was, I think over 500 attendees came to that event. So yeah, it's budding. And it's definitely a good place, I think, I'd say if you're looking at I think Montreal is really popular for very research intensive, deep AI. Yeah. I find BC companies that do AI are very much focused on applications and
interesting.
productizing AI.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Speaking of which, the other question was around what is the accuracy of the AI system in recognizing faces as our faces change, whether naturally or not?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So accuracy, right now, I'd say facial recognition, most high caliber companies, that includes companies like us, startups, or even bigger companies like Amazon and all that. Kind of the plateau of the accuracy is around 99.8%.
Wow.
So very high. But again, obviously there's always going to be that AI, kind of gap or error margin of error.
Yeah.
And that's because everyone's kind of using the same types of techniques. Like everyone's using AI and deep neural networks to essentially build their models, right? So you kind of end up plateauing at a certain level. And with recognizing people over time, we don't really have we haven't done any specific research about that. But I will say, because we've done events and so we've checked in tons of people, we often get people who come to us and say things like, oh, I posted a photo from me from 10 years ago from when I became a partner at my company, and now I'm 7, 10 years older and it recognized me, or people who say like, oh, I had a lot of like makeup, for example, and it still like
Yeah.
recognized me, and I don't
Yeah.
have makeup on today. And again, it's very much the same way that a person would recognize someone aging over time,
Okay.
because it's kind of the models are using that, right? Like when you think about how the facial recognition models are built, you usually have like labeled photos that as a person over. It's not necessarily over time, but some of those people, the photos might be over a certain period of time, and so
Mm-hmm.
kind of the AI models, like a person, would understand maybe how slight changes might happen, but again, it might not
Okay.
always be perfect when maybe there's a lot of difference.
Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, um, what do you feel like the, without giving away much, I just am curious about like what do you feel like the future of facial recognition is? Like how like I know you've been looking at lots of different ways,
Mm.
lots of different things, whether it's both using the product you currently have or building new products.
Yeah.
But curious about like what do you think that is going to look like? Like has COVID impacted using facial recognition to like a large degree? Do you think it would help it in the long term, or like what?
Yeah.
I'm just curious how it all fits in. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Again, I think like our perspective since day one, and honestly, I don't think it's changed that much. Is like the only way facial recognition is going to be successful in North America and Europe is if you really think about users and privacy
Yes.
first.
Yeah.
We've built all of, again, think about all the data privacy things that are happening in Europe, the regulations in California and what have you. You can't go in and build a system that violates those privacy regulations
Yeah.
and get away with it. Some companies have done that, and again, they've gotten into a lot of trouble.
Right.
And I think, again, there is going to be a lot more regulation coming. And so, again, we're trying to really, our perspective is always like, yeah, think about the user and think about user privacy. There's a framework we try to use, it's called privacy by design. So you kind of design
Okay.
your product from the ground up as you build the product. You're
Yeah.
kind of thinking about, okay, well, in what parts of the product will the user kind of have control over their account or their, or
Right.
their data, right? So that's kind of my perspective. I guess in the long term, yeah, the success will only be there if you think of like user applications.
Yeah.
I hope that there's, we're in the right space, whether it's offices or events. But again, like there's going to be, I think, many more like potentially things like payments, access, door access. So anywhere you might use a key or a card or
Yeah.
a fingerprint, that's kind of how I
Yeah.
think about it. You can replace that with, a face or a password even, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's what I was
so that's
thinking
kind of
about
what
with
I
with
think about
COVID
it.
and like not wanting to touch things. I think touchless technology has
Exactly.
probably been people have been paying more attention to it in the last few months.
Yeah.
So it's
And
really
that's been
interesting.
on our radar too, for sure. So I mean, if you go on our website right now, we have like kind of one of our latest blog posts, which is we actually wrote, I think, maybe about 2 months ago, kind of,
Yeah.
in the little while. And it's actually about touchless technology. So beyond just facial recognition, we're actually thinking about how do we pair facial recognition with things like voice recognition or
Right.
gesture. So, like a thumbs up, for example, to confirm. So instead of actually touching an iPad or,
Yeah.
a tablet to confirm something, you're using you're saying, yes, or what have you, or thumbs up to go to the next step. And
Yeah.
that way, you can go into an office, let's say, it says, welcome, Amer. Are you here to see, John? I do thumbs up. Go ahead, and that's it. You're not really touching anything.
Yeah.
The challenge there that I kind of always say though is that, again, we're definitely looking at that. We're going down the route, but my thing is, I think by the time things reopen, then it should be. I'm guessing by that time it should be kind of normal that you would touch things. I would hope. You never know
Yeah.
though.
I mean, I guess we don't know. That's
Yeah,
a big lesson of 2020. Hey,
yeah,
just like we
yeah,
don't know what's going to happen. So
exactly.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I have so many more questions, but we have other things to get to. I just
That's
have
fine.
all
That's
these
fine.
things have been popping up in my head around like
Yeah,
ethics and
yeah.
all these
No, for
things.
sure.
But it's really interesting. But what I
Yeah.
do want to know, because I know you've been through a lot over the past year as an entrepreneur working on this through COVID as well. So I'm curious, do you have any tips for your peer entrepreneurs, other people who are maybe in these kind of highly impacted
Yeah.
industries? Just like what's your secrets?
Yeah, I don't think there's a secret. I think it's kind of all about resilience at the end of the day, right? Like, I think we're all in a way entrepreneurs or small business owners or what have you, because we always know there's an inherent risk of,
Hmm.
of, of whatever you do.
Yeah.
So I guess in my mind, the way I've kind of looked at it is like what has happened is the downside, right? Like of when I thought I'd become an entrepreneur or what have you. Like when I started, it was like, okay, well, this is kind of the worst case scenario, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I work hard, then I guess the only way now is up,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's really kind of the reality of it, right? Like it was kind of this idea of things are going to go either really, really well or they're not going to go well. And obviously because of COVID, things have really, really changed. So now it's, how do I, as an entrepreneur and a problem solver, get, find a way through this, right? Whether it's through a pivot, a new product, whatever that's going to look like. And it kind of let's kind of try to keep moving forward. It's very difficult. Yeah. I would honestly say, like, I think, the first month or so, it was difficult. And I know it was difficult for a lot of, my colleagues and friends that are in spaces that were impacted because, like I said, people had these things lined up for the summer and kind of a revenue stream that they knew was coming. And, again, everything changed. So I would say, honestly, the first month, it was definitely like, let's figure something out. But I know everyone was like really sad and kind of impacted very heavily. But it's, again, like, how do you kind of pull yourself up and try to move forward? So yeah,
seems like you've been doing that. So are there any particular pivots that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, again, we've gotten a lot of
whiteboard of ideas.
Yeah, exactly. We have a lot of things, and I actually, I guess which maybe will come later, but my kind of ask is for people who see this or are on live right now is please add me on LinkedIn, because right now we're kind of going through this period of potential pivots and exploring new ideas. And so I'll often post and say, hey, I'm looking to talk to, one person or 10 people in this kind of industry. And I've actually, I think over the last few months, we've done between like surveys and interviews, we've definitely done close to 100, either one-on-one conversations or surveys as well, like very detailed survey responses. So we're getting really interesting validation on a number of ideas right now. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I'm looking through mostly is, so one of the ones is still for event organizers and companies that sponsor those events.
Yeah.
So again, always looking to talk to more companies, people who are either marketing managers, community managers, or partnership managers. Would love to kind of connect with you. And then we've got a couple more. I think one I'm excited about, again, is that's maybe relevant to today, is actually related to live streaming. So again, we're looking at a live streaming idea now as well. Not for events, more so for like e-commerce, let's say. Very broadly. So we're looking at how do we leverage social media, potentially things like live streaming for the e-commerce space. So we've got a couple of ideas. And again, like I said, we're really trying to validate and talk to people in a lot of different industries. So, we don't know what the next thing will be. And that's a chunk of my time. And then the other chunk, like I said, is still, looking at potentially acquiring some clients for people who are going to be returning to their offices and doing something with a member office. And maybe kind of staying on the radar of events, maybe as local and regional events start coming back. Even if we do them for like a low fee or even for free for a couple of them to get started, really kind of getting back into that market would be kind of a top priority for us.
Yeah. Have you seen any, do you have any kind of insights in terms of how the events community or industry, what's on their mind right now?
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting, so PCMA is one of the event organizations, and they do a survey. I think it's every month or every other month since COVID started, and it kind of gets the sentiment of event organizers and suppliers across. I think it's global, but I do think the focus is US and Canada at least. But it's been really interesting. So I almost like read that report every day. I actually sent it to one of my friends today as well, because again, it's that idea. Like I've surveyed people one-on-one, and I get a lot of things anecdotally. And then you kind of see kind of the aggregate. And it's actually, I'd say, very similar, where people say, this year it's still going to be virtual unless it's small regional or local events. So maybe a small meetup or, maybe some kind of smaller, very focused events for like maybe business development or what have you. So I could see those coming back. But again, 2021 for next year, people still think they're going to be greatly impacted. It seems like most people think, primarily it'll be more hybrid events.
Yes.
And then potential shift, like if they need to shift fully to virtual, if things don't get better, they're kind of preparing for that, but kind of planning for hybrid. And I think thinking that, again, revenues are going to be impacted quite significantly still into next year.
Yeah.
So most people, I think, say their revenues are like, they still expect their revenues to be impacted between like 30 and 50% next year compared to previous years, which is, again, still really significant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I feel like hybrid events, that's for some, so I've worked in event management, as you know,
Yeah.
but as other people don't know maybe so much,
Yeah.
I've worked in event management for over 10 years, and I trying to do a hybrid. People think that going to virtual was difficult. I think
Yeah.
hybrid's going to be really hard. It's going to be an adjustment. Like there's so many changes that as event managers we've had to get used to. And thankfully, I already worked 100% remote, and I was already teaching remotely, doing master classes. I'd been wanting to do remote events for years. So for me, I was just like, heck yes, we are getting on this
Ready.
and we're going to make it happen. And I'm quite comfortable engaging with people virtually. I don't have that block to get over, but so many people just had that to get over. And then like there's so many elements that make it difficult to wrap your mind around just going virtual. And then I think people think hybrid is like this, I don't know, like an easy an easier version. And I just don't think, I think it's way harder to do
Because, yeah, you're
a
managing the
hybrid.
event live as it happens, and then you're like trying to
Yes.
make sure all the online stuff is working fine.
Oh, and it's so complex. Like live streaming is not as good as I wish it. I wish it
Yeah,
were.
exactly.
And there's
And
so many like things
that's the
around
problem
privacy.
I'd love to fix too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at live streaming. I mean, like, the things that exist out there, we're not really using to their full potential. And yeah, there's a lot of potential for it in a lot of different industries. So how can we kind of find a way in? Yeah.
It's so complicated, and the things around privacy as well, like
Yeah.
getting the in person people being okay
Yeah.
with being potentially being caught on live stream, and if not, we have to edit it all. It's just like there's a lot going on
Yeah.
there.
For sure.
But I think it's
Definitely.
like if we could figure that out, and I think that is a future thing. I think like hybrid events will be a future thing, but I think it is very complicated, and people are maybe downplaying. It's like the hybrid work thing that people are talking about. I'm like, that's a lot more complicated than we think it is, I think.
Yeah.
But that's just me thinking. But I personally love virtual events.
Yeah.
So it's been very fun for me. But I also love my in person. I miss my community. So
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think one big thing like I've been commenting on a lot, and I've really been meaning to either write a blog about or kind of do more outreach about it. Is actually it's been unfortunate with online events just to see a lot of the industry kind of go to a free model. And I'm actually again a lot of the event organizers we talked to, it's like people felt like they needed to triage so quickly that they immediately went into, well, I need to maintain my brand. Through the next few months because we didn't know how long it was going to be, and they were like, okay, well, I'll just host 3 events, whether it's weekly or biweekly. And it's again, you want the attendees to come out and you want all that stuff, but again, at the same time, you're impacting yourself. And then what kind of happened is then it's a cycle where everyone sees other people having free events. They're like, well, if I do a paid event, no one's going to show up unless I tap into a very specific niche. And I think it's kind of snowballed a little bit too much. I'm starting to see finally now some events coming back that are saying, hey, we're going to do this one topic or something really, really well. So, we're asking for revenue or sponsorships or what have you. And like I said, that's one of the problems we're looking at is how do we bring sponsors and maybe value to the organizer and the attendees through virtual events and maybe hybrid events as well in the future. And that's, like I said, one of the areas we're looking at as well. Because, it's a shame because you have all these people working so hard and, again, not really making that revenue. They're not really getting paid sufficiently.
No,
and it is unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Yeah.
It's a lot. Virtual events are a lot. It's a lot of energy. Even to just like to host a virtual event is a lot of energy, but putting together all the pieces, the software costs a lot of money. That's the thing we went through of like, do we charge for events, which we did continue to charge for events. And then just recently we've stopped charging. But fun fact, I will say way more people registered for the free event, but the same amount of people showed up. So that's just a little fun fact for everyone that like it looked like more were going to come. We were super excited. And then it was like, we still have between 60 and 70 people at all of our events, which is awesome. But like 100 and something people registered and versus like with the paid events, the attrition level was so much lower, right? So you ended up having kind of the same amount of people. But we were doing it by donation as opposed to straight up payment, and but even like saying by donation, people were like, but you're a for-profit company, what's that about? So it's just
Yeah.
like so much education going on.
Yeah.
So I
Pay what
appreciate
you
what
want.
exactly
Yeah.
we did do pay
Yeah.
what you want or
Yeah.
pay what
Yeah.
you can or whatever it is, but it's
Yeah.
complicated. So I appreciate that you're working on that, because it's
Yeah,
I know it's been
yeah,
tough
no, for sure.
for a lot of
Because yeah, I
people.
think our kind of idea, one of our, I guess one of the things we're throwing around is this idea of, again, how do we connect potential sponsors, much more specifically to these events that are happening, right? So when you guys are doing a Women in Tech event, right? So like, can we actually key into companies locally or regionally or globally, nationally, whatever it is, right? That have that specific initiative,
Yeah,
and then try
yeah,
to connect you, right? And then kind of scale that up to partnerships, to all the other types of initiatives that are out there as well.
yeah,
There's definitely a way to make that potential matchmaking, and then again potentially add a layer of service, right? Like our whole thing is,
yeah,
how do we make that even a better experience for both parties and the attendees?
yeah.
So how do we kind of give people the ability to, potentially, we want everyone to benefit at the end of the day, right? So
Ideally.
that's kind of where we're going. Ideally, yeah, and that's definitely where we're kind of going with this next potential idea is trying to
Okay.
really focus on those connections,
Yeah.
beyond just what you would do on LinkedIn or what have you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're just about to wrap up here. So anyone who, I know a few people have joined us since I last said, if you have any questions, let us know. Because I only have got one question left. So I am going to say though, as you're thinking about your potential question, so Amer already talked about his ask or how we can support him, which is to be in contact via LinkedIn if you run virtual events, you support virtual events, or live events as well. So do you want to tell them again how can they connect with you on LinkedIn? Is that the best place to connect with you? Let us know
No,
that piece.
yeah, no, for sure. I definitely say, follow us on Instagram. You can see from the account I'm logged in on now. And
Mhm.
yeah, please add me on LinkedIn. You can kind of see again my name on the banner. If you search that, you'll find me. I think I'm the only Amer of Khajil, so you'll find me right away. And
Yeah,
like I said, my ask will be, again, whether it's events or actually even just more broadly, like pretty much any industry. Like I said, we're doing a lot of product validation these days.
right.
So yeah, every once in a while, I'll be putting up, a question, a survey, or even a request to interview people in specific industries. And
Okay.
yeah, if you're kind of willing to help and maybe be part of some of our early betas as we start maybe launching these new products, yeah, please connect, and yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Amazing. And it sounds like you also know a lot just about AI and facial recognition.
Yeah,
So
happy to talk
people,
anytime too.
yeah, happy to talk
Yeah,
about these things.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Anytime.
Cool. Okay, things I don't know about. It's very exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So the last thing I want to ask that I always ask before we sign off, is what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Ooh, I like that. Um, I mean, there's a lot of things. I won't say that things have been trending positively, but I guess one thing that I picked up since the beginning of kind of being at home, working from home, is actually video gaming. I used to
Yeah,
game a lot when I was in like, high school,
yeah,
and I really didn't throughout like university or like even afterwards when I was working. I kind of barely did.
yeah.
And then yeah, I guess over the last few months, it was again that a lot of that downtime in the evenings. Occasionally, I'll do something active. I go hiking and I do all that stuff, but I guess yeah, like gaming was kind of this little bubble where again after working from home all day, I can just kind of sit back and just kind of zone out and actually have to do something fun for a few hours. And
Cool.
yeah, no, that's, honestly, it's not for everyone, but it's been really kind of nice to go back to that like old self,
Yeah, why
feeling
not?
like I'm in
What's
high
what's
school just
what
gaming
game are
every
you
day.
what game are you playing?
A lot recently. I guess one of the recent ones that came out is called Ghosts of Tsushima, which is like a samurai fighting
Ooh,
game. But there's been a lot of releases lately, so it's
yeah,
actually
I
again been
that doesn't
it's been
surprise
a
me.
really big thing for the gaming industry because they know everyone's home. And they kind of had all these plans, so they're actually still going through with releasing brand new games.
Okay,
Yeah, but I feel like, and that's really been the benefit. I played through a whole bunch of them through COVID.
that's really fun.
Yeah, yeah,
I love it. I love it. Cool.
yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So is there also, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to cover before we sign off?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's been great chatting with you and reconnecting, like I said. And
Yeah.
yeah, for anyone who's on, please feel free to connect on LinkedIn and follow us on Instagram. Yeah,
Awesome. Sounds good. And I hope that we see you again on another founder chat down the line when maybe when you've decided on the pivot and you want to talk about that, we're always here to support. So thank you everyone who joined us, whether you're joining us live or joining us later. Feel free to continue to ask questions. If we see your questions in the IGTV version of this afterwards, we'll pass them along. And then we're actually doing an interesting thing this week where we're going to have another one of these at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time on Thursday. We're talking to a man named Isaac. He's with Techstars Seattle. So we're doing an additional one this week. Otherwise, we'll be back next Tuesday at the same time. So thank you again so much for joining us, Amer. It was great to see you again and to learn more about everything you're doing. Just the best of luck. I love how much customer discovery you do and all the surveys and just talking to your customer. Not enough people do that. And I just think it's incredible. So best of luck. Keep us posted on how everything goes. All right.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.